They say I'm brave, but I am lost in fear.
Hello, and welcome to Futon Talks, a podcast where we take a look back at things that we missed and try to gain a new appreciation for. I am your co-host, Christopher Midling, joined by my other co-host,
Josh Castro.
Hello, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm having you.
Today, we're talking about What Remains of Edith Finch, a game that came out in April, I believe, April 25th, 2017. Why did you miss this game, Josh?
Well, I have a pretty good reason for missing this game. I don't know why you missed it. I was on my mission at the time. And for those who don't know, we belong to a church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And when you're in the church, you have a choice where you can go, or an opportunity, I guess you would call it, where you can go on what we call a mission. And what that is you just go for 2 years and you try to help people find more happiness through a relationship with God and with Jesus Christ. But when you're doing that, you don't really have time to play video games, right?
Makes sense.
So, yeah, obviously, you're out and you're proselyting. Missionaries are the ones who knock on your door when you're trying to enjoy your time off. That's us. So
yes.
We're sorry about that. But so that's what I was doing. And so when I was there for 2 years, I think it was 2016 to 2018.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm pretty sure that was the time frame. It was like October 2016 to November of 2018. And so this falls smack dab in the middle of that. So there were a ton of games that I missed during this time.
Tons of very important games, too.
Yeah, I mean, there was Neo. There was Hellblade. Some of these games are some of my favorite games now. Hellblade, I think it's one of the best games ever made. There's Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey. Granted, I didn't play either of those games because I don't have a Switch. Or Destiny 2, which I think sucks, but that's okay. And Resident Evil 7, but there's tons. And that's just...
Too many to talk about.
Exactly. So we're not going to. This isn't about them.
This is about Edith.
This is about Edith and what remains of her. But what did you miss and why? Or why did you miss this game?
I took a look at my trophies, and
big trophy guy over here.
In between, so when this game came out, I had just finished platinuming, which isn't a word, but I got the platinum for The Evil Within on PS4. And then right after that, I was playing Persona 5, which took 120 plus hours to complete.
Those will steal your life.
So, and honestly, I don't think I heard about this game until a year or two later. Really? It just, you look at it, or I look at it, and I thought another, what is it, the Rapture one?
Rapture, or Everybody Gone to the Rapture.
Yeah, Everybody Goes to the Rapture.
Gone Home. Dear Esther.
Yeah, all these games that I'm not really keen on.
Why aren't you keen on them? Do you hate women? Because they all have female protagonists?
I don't like walking simulators.
Because you could just go do that outside, game developers. No, I agree with you.
But I don't know. This is an interesting game.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah.
What put it on your radar? You said you heard about it about a year later. Do you remember hearing about it? Or
I think I just saw an ad like on the PlayStation Store, seeing that it was on sale, or because honestly, I thought Edith was a man. There's a cover art somewhere where I thought this was about an old man.
Ooh.
And I think I'm thinking of another game. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Ethan Carter.
So I got these two games mixed up all the time.
They both have long-winded titles.
Yes.
With a name that starts with an E. So
yeah.
You
can't blame me.
I can't blame you. No, that's interesting though. So it was just kind of something that happened.
Yeah, I just saw it, or I saw Ethan Carter. I don't know which one I saw.
I never have seen this. But you weren't interested, even at that point.
No, it's just no.
So
I was busy doing other things
because of me.
Yes, the only reason I played this game is because of you, Josh.
Yes.
What about you? How did you come across this game?
I have no idea how I came across this game, if I'm being honest. I got back from that mission that I was talking about, like I said, in late 2018, right before Christmas. And for probably a full year, I didn't have a game console. I was just busy with school, and I was starting my first year of college, and I was working a bunch. And so I just really never got around to it. But by the time I did get a PS4, I then decided that I wanted to, try to catch up on a bunch of things I missed. And so I had a huge list of games. And ever since then, now in in late 2020, almost early 2021, I've been working through that list. And this game wasn't really on there.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been like near the bottom. But the reason that I got this game specifically is I did a Google search of like games that are good to play with like a significant other.
Okay.
Because I had met my now wife, my then girlfriend, and I wanted her to, enjoy video
games like you.
Because, it's something I'm passionate about. I wanted her to understand it and kind of take part in it. And this was pretty much on every list. It was on there. It was up there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people just really recommended this game as an experience that you could enjoy with another person. And so that's what turned me on to it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a cute story.
Enjoy it together.
Yes, we will. Did you want to describe this game in 3 words, like
baby.
Killzone? Keep that going?
I think we should. I like that. I like that little trend.
Let's do it.
In 3 words. Do you want me to go first?
Sure. Or I can go first. It doesn't matter.
Well, I can go first. Don't steal my thunder, Chris. Gosh.
I gave you the thunder, Josh.
Oh, man. Because the thunder comes after the lightning. I'm going to strike twice with 3 words. I think the first word would be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Second word would be melancholy.
Mm-hmm.
And the third word would be pain.
Pain.
Which seems like an odd word. I'm trying to think of maybe a better word for it, but it's like beautiful pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like nostalgia.
Yeah.
Almost. Where it's like a recollection of something that fills you with emotion, but it's not all... It's like painful happiness. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So nostalgia, melancholy, and beauty.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Nice.
I hope not to wax too poetic during this one.
No,
this game very much affected me. So, well, what would your 3 words be?
You basically took them from my mouth.
I took them right out.
I thought melancholy and nostalgic. Serene was a word that I wanted to use, or harrowing.
That's a great word, harrowing. Not heroin. Harrowing.
This, maybe to your surprise, this game affected me quite a bit too. And I just gotta say, I love this game.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you love this game.
This is such a good experience. And I'm excited to kind of go through it beat by beat with you. So, if you want the honors, you can start out at the beginning of this game. I don't know how you want to really do it.
No, yeah, I think...
Start with Edith and then go from... what's her name? Odin? Or there's Odin.
There's Odin, there's Sven, there's Edie. And I think Molly is the first actual...
And you do them all in the same order, or can you just do them however you want?
See, it's really interesting. The game tricks you into thinking you can do it however you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's a...
I thought it was a progression.
Yeah, you have to do everything in the order that is prescribed. So.
Okay, that's what I thought, because the first one was... The first one that I came across was Odin, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of underwhelming. And then it just got more... It got deeper and deeper as you went on. So if you want to start, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I guess to begin, I'd like to start, and I'm sure you feel the same way, with saying, if you guys haven't played this game, like, stop listening to this podcast and go play it.
Yeah.
And then come listen to us.
Yeah.
but I mean, this game is... I feel like you hear that a lot in game reviews, but this is one of those games where I really mean it. Like, this is something you should experience for yourself.
Absolutely.
But if we're to go right into it, I think we could probably just go through each of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Not every family member has a mini game, quote unquote. It's kind of the best way to describe it. Maybe a mini experience.
Does it have
to
a
go with
vignette?
A vignette. That's a great word for it. Not every family member has a vignette. But I guess to start off, to explain all that, the best thing to do would to give a quick summary. So I can give a quick summary of the game if you'd like to start with it, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But pretty much the idea of this game is that you're a young girl, you're 17, and your name is Edith Finch. Your mother, whose name is Dawn, has recently died. She passed away, and all she left you, or perhaps she left you more, but she left you the key to the old Finch family house, and it's what you see on the box art or on the the tile for the game.
You see that silhouette, yeah.
Yeah, the iconic silhouette of the house. It's towering into the sky. But anyways, you get this key to it, and you're going back to pretty much find out who you are through finding your family history. And as you go through the house, you discover things, and you discover stories about family members who have passed away that are generations apart from you, as well as family members who you grew up with. And a lot of it has to do with this family curse, quote unquote, which results in the untimely deaths of pretty much every member of the Finch family.
Mm-hmm.
And your goal is to see if there is a curse, try to understand it, and see what all that means for you and for, spoiler alert, your baby boy who you are pregnant with throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a quick summary that I think encapsulates what's going on in the story.
It's a really good place to start and a good foundation. I do like how the Finches are like these fictional Kennedys.
Yeah.
Which is all I thought about while I was playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we can... So like when you start the game, you're in the driveway, kind of, or the path leading towards the house. You see the house towering over the trees, but you don't really know how to get there. Apparently there's multiple paths. There isn't?
The achievement's a lie. There's technically multiple paths.
Oh, really?
There's like, you can go on the road or you can go down a little path.
Oh, okay. Which one did you go on?
The first time I went down, I played the game twice.
Oh, okay.
The first time I went down the little forest path.
Me too.
And then I did the
The
street.
other way.
It doesn't change anything, but...
I didn't think it would. That's cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you go through this forest, and as Edith is narrating her story, it's very cute how they do it. They have little text floating in the air, and it kind of moves as you walk through it. It's almost like a living fairy tale.
Yeah,
book that you're just walking through.
That.
It's very cool. It makes it very fantastical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from there, you get to the house. The door's locked, and so you have to find another way. You go through a doggy door, which leads to the garage. And just in this garage, there is a lot of attention to detail of the times. You see that very iconic string with the tennis ball.
Yeah.
So for the car, and under the car is covered with a tarp. It's a Winnebago.
You can tell.
You can tell there's the wood paneling on the side. And this is where this is the first part of the game where I was like, oh, this feels nostalgic. I feel like I've been here, even though I haven't been, It's
very evocative of the time that it represents.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then from there, you go through the house. The house is complete. Oh, yeah, what?
Really quick for you.
Yeah.
So I kind of already spoiled that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was really stupid the first time I played this.
Okay.
I don't think I realized she was pregnant until she says I'm pregnant. But
I didn't realize that either.
Why? What's wrong with
And
us?
I thought that was like a twist or something.
No, if you...
Because you can look down.
You can look down.
And see her belly.
And I guess I just thought she was chubby. I don't know. But she says little things throughout the story that indicate that she's pregnant.
Really?
Yeah, like when she goes through the doggy door, she's like, even a couple years ago, it was so much easier to fit through this doggy door.
I thought she was talking about how young she was.
And I think that a lot of things can be taken that way.
Uh-huh.
But it's like, oh, she's pregnant. So it's like...
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Or when she's going through like the vents and stuff.
Yeah, and she talks about that again in that same way. And sometimes she'll say, oh, this for two. And anyways.
Yeah. No, I was stupid. I had no idea until she said it to me.
Even literally, because I played this with my sister and my then girlfriend. And my sister even said, like, is she pregnant? I'm like, no. You stupid. She's not pregnant. Anyways,
that's awesome.
So my sister knew, and I was too dumb to catch on. I was just curious if you noticed that. You can
So I'm pretty sure you go through the house. It's completely deserted, obviously, but it's left. It is how it was left, basically. Mm-hmm. So dirty dishes everywhere. Lots of dining room chairs tipped over. It almost reminds me of the Resident Evil 7 house.
Oh yeah.
It's very cluttered and claustrophobic. And a lot of these walking simulator games, they feel like horror games because you're always like expecting something to pop out. Mm-hmm. But they never do. And that is such a brilliant way of causing tension and for keeping the player involved in everything that's going on. At least that's the way I felt. It kept me engrossed with the story, wondering what was next. It forced me to look for things and explore the house more. But so at this point, you're in the house. It's to your disposal, and the first person that I found was Odin. Through the little, what are those things called?
Oh, I don't know. Little flipper picture things?
Yeah, the little...
You play with them when you were a kid.
Yeah, you play with them as a kid. Which, on the controller, I thought that was very cool. You had to hold it down like the actual triggers. Yeah. I thought that was a neat touch.
No, it was. It made me think of PS5's adaptive triggers, even though it didn't have them.
Yeah, even though it didn't have them.
But it made me think of it. So they did a good job with just the audio and...
Yeah, it was very cool. But... you find out that the first or the original Finch came from Norway, which I really like. I have family in Norway. And so what happened was the Finches came from, like, through boat from Norway to the San Juan Islands, which you and I have been to.
Yeah.
And I love the San Juan Islands. They're
beautiful.
More specifically, they land on Orcas Island, which is a very remote island. There's 3 of them: Lopez, San Juan, and Orcas. So it was very fitting. I could imagine this house being an Orcas Island.
Oh yeah.
Even though the art and gameplay was very what's the word? Simple looking. It did evoke that nature of Orcas Island. And I just thought that was there's so many little touches and like strings to me personally that I feel like a lot of other people will feel too in some way. And it's just a neat touch for such a small story. But from there, where did you go?
From there, I think I ended up going into Molly's room. But I'd really like to speak to what you said about a couple of things, especially just this game feeling so relatable. Even though I'm not from the San Juan Islands, I visited, and even though, I mean, I guess I probably do have Norwegian ancestry like you do. But I just found this game to be so like a living thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So many games. I mean, we just played Killzone, and we just talked about that in our last podcast. And that game feels dead. It feels empty compared to this game, which just feels like it has a soul. And
absolutely.
It's like you can have a relationship with it. And I really love what you said about how the house, of course, the house is a character, but it's also so engaging. You almost never have a moment where you are bored because you can't. It's always talking to you. It's because Edith has lived there and she actually has memories there. So when you look at the countertop, Edith has something to say about the countertop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it seems like that could be annoying, but it's not. because it's so engrossing. It's so well done. And that's why I think this game is a step above any of the other quote-unquote walking simulators that I've played.
Yeah.
I played, and it brings to mind Dear Esther, which was the original. That was the one that started the controversy around walking simulators and whether they're games. And I don't want to talk about that. I think, of course, they're games.
Yeah.
But Dear Esther is bad. But that's not the point. But it's one of those games where I feel like you really have to look for more. I don't feel like it is as willing to give you something. Whereas it feels like Edith Finch is always ready to give you more and to show you something and to tell you something. And it's more engaging because of that. It feels so, I guess engaging is the right word. It feels so interactive, even though you're not
that was
doing
the word
anything.
I was looking for, yeah.
Right? I mean, you're just walking, but at the same time, you're connecting with the game in a way that I've connected with few games.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that's really significant. But yeah, after we we don't talk to him, but we go to Odin, and that's in Edie's room.
Edie's
correct?
room, yes.
That's in Edie's room.
Which is your great-grandmother.
Mm-hmm. And Edie is going to be a really important figure in the story. She's pretty much the only Finch that survives to be very old. She's 90 by the time she dies. And she is the one who sets up these bizarre memorials throughout the house. And it's at these memorials that you kind of get to have a little vignette of the person's life. And she set one up for her father, Odin. Mm-hmm. And that's where the little camera is that you can look through and see the story of his travels from Norway to the States. But the next thing that you kind of stumble upon is through these secret passages that have inexplicably been built into the house between rooms. You find the memorial that Edie made to Molly. And now, I believe that Edie is Molly's mother. Correct? Because she's your great-grandmother.
Yes.
And this is where the game is slightly confusing sometimes, is in the lineage.
Is Molly... Because your Molly's your grandma.
Molly is your great-aunt.
Oh, great-aunt.
Because you come down through... We swear we know this game. It's obviously not Walter. It's not Barbara. It's not Molly, because they're dead. Perhaps it's through Sam, because Sam is Don's father. Mm-hmm. Yes. So it goes Edie, Sam, Don, Edith.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but Molly then is Edie's daughter.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
She died in the 40s or 30s, right?
Yes. And you can tell that from her room. When you go in, it's, again, evocative of the time that she was alive. And these little vignettes that they do, they're not just like stories, but they're little prototypes for a new way to experience gaming, which I think is really significant. I mean, it's incredible how not a single one of these vignettes plays in the same way. Mm-hmm. They all use a different mechanic and take it to a new extent to kind of connect you again, to connect you to the game. And so I think this one really comes out swinging, and it starts with a bang. I think this is maybe the longest vignette, is the one with Molly, and it's the first one you do.
I believe so too, yeah.
So tell me what you think about Molly's vignette, what stuck out to you, what you thought was significant, whether you were surprised.
I didn't know how to feel about this one. I didn't connect with it as much as I would Odin's or even later vignettes. It was very cool though. It was a good impression of what to expect, or like, here's the bar of the creativity that this game is gonna provide. So you wake up in Molly's room and it's a dream, and you're playing as Molly, obviously, but then she's narrating her dream, and then she like walks to the window, and then she turns into the cat. Mm-hmm. And the cat is chasing this owl, or was it an owl or a pigeon?
Some bird.
Some
bird.
She
calls it a mama bird, which is disturbing.
It was like a blue jay.
Something like that, yeah. Some little bird.
Yeah.
And did you expect her to turn into a cat?
I was not expecting that.
What did you think was going to happen when she approached the window like that?
Something was going to come out of the window.
Ooh,
or,
yeah. Something, yeah.
Something scary because I thought it was going to be a nightmare. But it turned out to be just this dream of freedom. That's what it felt like to me. Being a girl, and she is out of the house. She's climbing through the trees as a cat. You look through the window and you see your parents in their bedroom talking. And you finally get what you want. You finally get the bird. But then you turn into an owl.
Yes.
As you're falling.
And the reason that you're going after these animals is because you're hungry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's hungry.
Because you were sent to bed without dinner because you had been naughty or something.
Yes.
You naughty girl.
Yeah, your hunger just gets larger and larger. So first you get the bird. And then larger and larger. Yeah. And then you turn to the owl and you're hunting rabbits. And this one was kind of cool. I wasn't expecting this one. But you fly as this owl and you use the triggers to swoop down, and you kind of hear the rabbits in their holes or in the bushes, and you swoop down and you grab one, but her hunger can't be
satiated. Yeah,
satiated. So she has to go after a mama rabbit. Which I liked how that was the next big thing.
I like how she eats them in one bite.
Yeah. And so I also like the perspective of eating all these animals, but it turns out that the owl is too big for the owl. Wait, I just
It's too big for the owl.
The mama rabbit is too big for the owl's mouth. So the owl transforms into a shark.
And this was one of the moments that I pitched to you when I was trying to play the game.
And it was exactly as I expected. It's what I thought it would be. What do you eat as the shark?
You find a seal and you...
Oh yeah, you find a seal. That part was a little hard to figure out because the seal would always get out of the way somehow.
Like he didn't want to be eaten.
Yeah. The perspective changes from a third person to a first person of a shark. It just got really disorienting. But when you finally feast upon the seal,
poor baby seal.
At
least he wasn't a mama seal.
Maybe she was.
She probably was. She only likes eating mamas.
You turn into a sea monster of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know what it is. It has to be like some sort of squid or octopus, right?
Yeah, because of the tentacles.
Yeah. But it's only one tentacle.
Well, I guess this is true.
But
just a weird snake. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it could be some sort of sea monster. And you're on this ship, and you start feasting on the sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing the whole drunken sailor song, and so you finally get to the last sailor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not hungry anymore.
You're satiated. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're full. No, it's really fascinating because, again, I don't know, maybe we made it sound like this was to be expected, but it was not to be expected.
Yeah.
I mean, this really comes out of left field. I mean, I'm not sure this game comes off as something that's going to be at all supernatural or creepy even, but it's really disturbing because it's being narrated not by Edith, but by this little 7-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And she's talking about, I'm going to eat the mama. She's eating all these moms, and she's so hungry. And
it's very primal what she's doing.
Yeah, it's very primal. That's a great word for it. And then she's not just eating animals, but she's killing people, And then after she eats the man, and it's just disturbing, Yeah. In a good way. It's very engrossing in how disturbing it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, I really think that this whole section was meant specifically to catch you off guard. I think it's really trying to throw you off balance because it wants to be different, and it wants you to understand, no, this game is not going to be like the others. This is something that that is going to be special, and it's going to make you feel things.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing it's going to make you feel is disturbed, because after you eat the sailor, I think that it says something like, but you could smell something even tastier and irresistible in the distance.
Yeah.
Right? And then you slither through the water up into a sewage pipe, and you'll eventually go up a pipe all the way up through the toilet into Molly's bathroom, which you'll recognize from when you were walking around as Molly.
Yeah.
And you'll go under her bed, and that's what she's writing about in her diary.
She wakes up thinking that it's under the bed. I totally forgot about that. You're right. It was really disturbing, actually. And
isn't it? Yeah.
really scary.
And I wrote a quote for each of the little vignettes.
Oh, okay, nice.
And the first quote for this one that I found the most disturbing, kind of like emblematic of the experience of playing it, was Molly's 4 last words that she wrote in her diary. I will be delicious. She says, well, we all know that I'm going to be delicious to the sea monster.
Yeah.
And it's wild. But here's the thing. Every one of these vignettes tells the story of a Finch dying. So Molly dies that night.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of a little bit of a puzzle, and I didn't know it on my own. I didn't figure it out. But I watched a couple videos that were kind of documentaries on the game, and I watched a presentation at GDC that the developers gave. So I cheated. I don't actually know anything of myself and of my own creativity. But so I know how she died. I want to know if you had any inklings for how she died.
Is it the stuff she's eating throughout the room?
Yeah.
Like the berries?
Exactly. They're
Really?
holly berries.
Oh.
And holly berries are poisonous, as well as the toothpaste, which she eats.
Yeah.
And so it's those things that poison her. And she dies. And that's why
Wow.
she's having these insane dreams, because she's poisoned.
That's so cool.
I know.
I didn't even know that.
I know. I didn't know that. I was like, well, I guess she got eaten by a sea monster. I thought she had had a stroke or something. But it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And this specific story and her death is actually going to become very important as we talk about the story as a whole later, and what it really means for Edie and what it means for the curse. So
yeah.
Anyways, I guess the next one after Molly, I believe, would be. For some reason, I thought that Odin and them came next, but that's wrong.
Is it wrong?
I believe that what you said was correct. Oh, it's Calvin, because she goes into the twins' room.
Yes. Yeah. Calvin.
And Calvin is the one that wants to be an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
You go into their room, and it's split in two because Calvin and Sam were twins. Sam is the one that is your grandfather, directly. Yes. Married to your mom. No, I'm stupid. He's your father of your mom. But Calvin was his childhood brother. I can't do this. He's your childhood brother. And they have this really, really cool room.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, their bed's a spaceship. And, again, one of those things where you're just so impressed by the art direction. But you go up, and you find a little shrine to Calvin. And on the shrine is a note from his brother Sam that says, how I want to remember my brother Calvin. And I just want to say that for me, Sam is like the hero of this story. Like, he's not necessarily a good guy, but he writes several of the letters that you read. And this man he makes me cry every time. Every time Sam wrote anything, I just got really emotional reading it or hearing it. But what were your thoughts on Calvin and his untimely demise?
I thought it was really neat how they depicted it. So what it is was it 1967? 60,
I believe so.
Somewhere in the 60s. Yeah. So Calvin is swinging on a branch by the house, and the house is on a cliff.
Very safe.
Very safe.
That's where I'm going to build my swing set.
Yep.
Overlooking a deadly cliff.
Calvin and Sam are out playing, and then your mom calls you and, saying it's time for supper or whatever. And so Sam, being the good boy he is, runs to mommy. But Calvin decides to keep on swinging.
Like a punk.
Even though the wind is starting to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And so how the game shows you how he died was the wind just keeps getting stronger and stronger, and as you swing, you start swinging in circles, going over the branch. And a really disturbing part about this game is that usually you're the one killing the family members.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to do it as the player because you know exactly where it's going.
Because it can only go one direction.
Yeah. And so you're using the thumbsticks to go back and forth. You're controlling the legs, and once you figure out that, I go both up, both down to start swinging. So you swing over the branch a few times, and then you get launched into space, kind of.
Yeah, you really fly.
It says something about he learned to fly. And it was...
My heart.
It was really sad. But it was a really melancholy way of how he died. I mean, a lot of these characters are dying in happy ways. They're almost getting their dreams. Calvin learned to fly. Molly's imagination took her somewhere. And we'll
Gregory
get to other
happy.
ones.
Yeah, I mean, some of them aren't happy. but I would say you're right. And that's what I meant in the beginning by happy pain, right? It's just like this blissful, like, I don't know, drowning almost,
Yeah.
Where it's probably horrifying when it's happening, but they look so peaceful. Anyways, that was a horrific image for you guys. Sorry about that. But the line I wrote for Calvin was something that we both alluded to earlier. And again, this is Sam speaking about his kid brother. He says, "That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly." And he did. And it's just like, oh gosh.
Yeah, that gives me chills.
Man, the writing in this game it just gives me chills. And he did, he flew down to his death on the rocks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is awful.
It's terrible.
And this is the thing. I loved what you said about how we're causing the deaths. And granted, we're playing as the people, so really they're causing their deaths.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an important aspect to our conversation about whether the curse is real.
Oh, okay.
Because we're doing it.
Yeah.
Right? And they're doing it. So it's very interesting. We're going to have to talk about that. But the person that comes after Calvin, I believe is Barbara.
I think so.
I love
so
Barbara.
Too.
I think this is such a cool story.
This is my least favorite one.
Really? I love this one.
And
it's very ambiguous.
Yes. So Barbara's the star, right? She's the
screamer. Well, that sounds bad, but she is she was famous for her scream.
For her scream.
A childhood acting.
Yeah.
Movie. Yeah.
She's the childhood star.
Yeah.
I liked everything about this except for the narrator, who just reminds me of Goosebumps.
I think he's supposed to, but not that that's good.
Yeah.
You can intend something that doesn't go over well.
But please explain to us what Barbara's demise is.
Oh, yes. Old Jack. His voice is so awful.
So how this was chosen is it's a comic book that the mother chose to be the retelling of her daughter's death. We don't really know how she died, right?
We know that some things in the story are true.
Yeah, we know certain things are true.
And we know that she died. And that she disappeared and that her death scarred Walter.
And we know that Walter hid.
Yeah. I think... Well, let's talk about what we think happened after we explain what it presents.
Okay, yeah, please go on.
But, so I guess what I love about this story is just the presentation and how unexpected it was. Again, this game just really surprised me, like at every turn. We go from a really realistic, depiction of swinging, which even feels like you're swinging with the way you're interacting with the controller, to this, where you're reading a comic book, and at first you're just turning pages, and there's a narrator who, again, like Chris said, it sounds like a Goosebumps narrator. It's very cheesy. And he's saying that Barbara was invited to do her scream that she was so famous for at a monster con, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
And she was really excited about this because she hadn't had any business and she was a star. She wanted to continue being a star. Anyway, so she is going to go to this con, and it's in this comic book portrayal, right? So at first you're just turning the pages, but at one point you're waiting for the page to turn and you realize that you are looking at a panel on a comic strip, but you're controlling
what's in the panel.
Yeah. And it is just so cool because everything is then cel-shaded. And all the art, like the assets are the same, and you're in the same place and you know the same space, right?
Yeah.
But it's in a comic book panel. And it's just very cool how immersive it is. And so I guess that's what I really appreciate about it, is just the creativity. Like, wow, who thought to do this? Anyway, so you're preparing for this con and your boyfriend is there and he's trying to help you scream, I guess. He's trying to scare you and trying to coach you, right?
Yeah.
And eventually he thinks that he hears something in the basement. And on the radio you can hear this broadcast. It's about hooligans that are breaking into people's homes.
Yeah, there's a killer on the loose, right?
Yeah, there's a killer. And there's all sorts of stuff going down, and so it's supposed to set the atmosphere. And that's why they're scared when they hear something in the basement. But there's something really important that happens where she shows him where the key to the basement is, and it's kind of this complicated thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
You have to turn a music box many, many, many times, and after you do it, the key dislodges from it. And that'll be important later. But
yeah, you find out how to get into the basement in the Edith's perspective
in the
through
real world.
The comic, which
Yes.
is just really cool.
It is really cool. And it says something about the narrative, which is really interesting.
So I turned the box before even finding
you can't.
Barbara's. You can't dislodge it? Okay.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Which would have been cool, though.
All right.
That
Go
would have
on,
been
sorry.
cool if you could do that. No, you're okay.
Curious.
But anyways, you get the key out. You go downstairs. I'm just going to kind of speed through this because it's not as important. But your boyfriend is hiding in a refrigerator downstairs. And after waiting for him for a while, you don't see him. So you pick up one of his crutches because he has a sprained ankle or something. And you go downstairs. You check the fridge. He jumps out at you. He scares you. You get in a little tiff. You know, you're a little bit angry at each other.
Yeah.
And then you come back upstairs. And things are going pretty well. I think he goes home. And then you, Barbara, you take a nap on the couch. But you wake up and you hear someone moving in the house. Or something like that. And the radio is, again, talking about this murderer that's on the loose. I think you go to check on your brother. Correct? You go to check on Walter.
Yeah.
And he's not there. And so you're like, oh, that's really weird. But then in the background of the panel, you see the Hook Man. He's there. He's going to murder you. And you get in a fight with him. You push him over the banister. He falls. And, classic horror trope. You look away from his body to go down to, I guess, finish him off. Barbara's very brave. And you get to it, but he's no longer there. And then all the monsters come out, which is the bizarre twist. Suddenly, there's tons of monsters there. The Monster Con comes to her house, and they're all excited to hear her scream. And she does it for them, and they
get riled up, kind of, like really excited.
Yeah, they're very excited. She did a great job. And the quote I have actually finishes that line off. It says, or she says that, she does her scream, everyone loves it, and where is it? Then old Jack says, I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. And so they eat her. And that's the story. And they supposedly all they leave behind of her body is a bloody ear in the music box. And that's the end of the story.
How did they get John Carpenter's music?
I don't know, man. I don't know. This game is just wild.
Yeah.
There's stuff everywhere. But yeah, it's really atmospheric. They do a great job with the horror. It's like a satire.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
It's like an 80s. I mean, it's just like playing through Halloween.
It totally is.
Pretty much.
And but so I guess for me the story isn't what's as impressive about this. It's really more the presentation. But here's the thing. And we're gonna get into this about Edie. And I'm not gonna lie and pretend like I came up with this on my own. I learned this particular thing from a video from Joseph Anderson on YouTube. You guys should check him out. He does these great retrospective videos. And he did one on Edith Finch. And he points out that this comic book gets so many things right about the house. Not just the layout. Not just what it looks like in the basement. Right?
Yeah.
But it gets the detail about the key.
Okay.
And turning it. And if you look throughout the whole house, Edie has lots of newspapers framed where she tells tell-all stories to the newspapers. Now, she is Barbara's mother, but the only person that could have told the media and the comic book artist how to get the key for the basement would have been Edie.
Wow.
So could you imagine that she's so starved for attention that she's willing to pretty much blaspheme her own daughter's murder?
Yeah.
And then keep it on a memorial to her?
That's crazy.
Isn't that like so scummy?
Yeah.
It like makes your skin crawl.
Do you think she killed her daughter?
Oh, I can't imagine she killed her. I think it was probably her boyfriend, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
But, and I don't think the ear thing is real. But
No, I doubt it.
But just like, yeah. And it's also a little bit Edie's fault that no one was there.
Yeah.
Because she brings Sven to the hospital. Stupid Sven cutting his hand. But, but you know, in a way, Edie, I think, could feel some guilt for this unless she blames it all on the curse.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Joseph Anderson and a bunch of other people get into, is that the curse is so important to the story because it is Edie and everyone else's way of avoiding responsibility for their own actions and for contributing to the pain of the people around them.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
Anyway, so Edie is dodging guilt through blaming the curse. And that's how she's able to, you know, profit off her own daughter's death. Anyway, so it's interesting.
That's crazy. I would have never thought about that until you said it.
Me either. Again, not my ideas. Yeah. This is all other people. I'm just the messenger.
Yes.
But it's fascinating how deep this game goes. The more you look into it, the more you're like, oh my gosh, they were talking about this then. But anyways, I don't want to take too long with each individual person, but who comes after Barbara?
Is it Walter?
Yes, and that makes sense narratively too, because he's there. And
he's the
deeply affected
little
by the
brother
murder.
who hides.
Yes.
I love Walter's story.
Oh yes.
I love this story so much. So when you find Walter's room, basically his little bunker, and you read the notes, when he hid, after Barbara's death, he hid in this room for 30 years while Edith was alive, like after she was born, and she never got to meet her uncle. And the way this game shows you how time passes is so beautiful and sad. So you're in the first person, obviously, and you're just Walter sitting at his little desk, and all he gets to eat is these canned peaches. And you open the can, you eat it, and then 10 years go by. And then 20 years go by, or 10 more years, or whatever. It ends up being 30 years, right? Or is it 33? I think it's 30.
I think it's 30.
Yeah, it's a
Nice
flat
round
30. And Walter just decides it's time to leave. So you go through this tunnel, and there's this brick wall that you use a sledgehammer to break through. And you end up on a railroad. And for the first time, Walter is seeing the sun, basically. Oh. He's seeing the world he's missed 30 years for. He was basically a prisoner in his own house for 30 years. And at this point, what was he, 38?
Oh, he was older.
Was he older?
You know,
How old was he when he
I
was?
get the impression he's old, but I think you're right. He must not have
He
been.
yeah,
He
he
sounds old. Maybe he was under there longer.
on his picture is like a white beard.
That's true.
This is weird.
He's got to be like 52.
Yeah.
I think he's like 52.
He must be older,
I don't know
okay.
why I'm thinking that number, but that feels right.
But yeah, it's just he finally breaks free, but he's just walking on the tracks and he gets hit by the train.
Oh.
Which
So
later
hard,
on
so
as
painful.
Edith, when you go through the tunnel and you go on the railroad track, you see his memorial there. Which is also very sad. But what did you think about Walter's story?
Man. So, for me, this is where the game really took a turn to be something that affected me in a deeply emotional way.
I agree.
Because obviously Calvin, I felt something, but that was more for the writing.
Mm-hmm.
Just I think that the writing in this game is beautiful, but
It was very poetic.
it's poetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this, from here on, I think I cried, and I'm not afraid to admit it, I'm a man.
Mm-hmm.
I cried probably during every vignette from here on. And it's just affected me so deeply because you see this man and also the way the music interacts with these scenes from here on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other ways it shows time passing is that the music on the radio changes with each decade.
Yeah.
And it reflects the decade. It's
Yeah.
like rock and roll, and then it's blues. But once you, quote unquote, escape. Oh, and also, I really like what you said about him being a prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to know that Walter is down there because he's terrified of death. Because he watched his own sister die.
Yeah.
And he's not just scared of death, he's scared of the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Because he thinks that death is coming for him like a hunter.
So he's barricading himself from the world so he doesn't die, but that kills him.
Exactly. It's at the door.
Yeah.
And that's what's so fascinating is that this curse is ruining everyone's lives.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't state it over the head. This is the opposite of Killzone Shadowfall. Because Killzone, it doesn't trust you enough to get that, shining red eyes mean someone's bad.
Yeah.
But in this game, it trusts you so much that you can miss it completely, right?
Absolutely,
That this curse is the villain. And so he's a prisoner to this curse, right? And I think what I have written is his lines about how he's ready to escape.
Ready to live his life, whether it be a year, a week, or a day, or whatever, yeah.
I think that with this one specifically, you could probably just take the entire thing. Because the entire quote is so beautiful. But what I'd wrote is just the last two lines. I'd be happy with one new day. I can already imagine the sun on my face. And as he says that, you can see the light of the train coming around the corner and it kills him.
Yeah.
And the music as Edith walks the path that Walter walked.
Yeah.
And Edith is realizing how harmful these stories can be and how harmful this curse can be. And she's asking herself, I don't know if I should keep these stories. I don't know if I should even be writing them now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very, very powerful that this poor man was kept a prisoner for so long.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Walter before we move on to who I think the next one is Gregory, correct? No, it's
Sam.
Is it Sam or
Mhm.
Gus?
Well, technically it's like the cemetery, but it's Sam.
Okay. But with Walter, something that touched me, so we all work jobs. And in his life, he was doing the same thing every day, which is what doing a job feels like. At least the one that I'm doing, night crew at a grocery store, doing this, opening
Same
boxes
thing every day.
all day,
Yeah.
all night long. But it just made me feel so lonely
Oh, yes.
playing that. And it made me feel every day is wasted when you're doing the same thing every day. You know?
When you're not feeling the sun on your face.
Exactly. So playing through Walter's story, the words that I kept thinking of was loneliness and monotony.
Mm-hmm.
And just waste.
Oh, yes.
Which you, as Edith, going through the tunnel and while you're walking his path, you actually see all of the cans of peaches that he ate. Yeah. That he, like, dug a grave for, basically.
Oh,
like a tomb.
What good... I love the way you said that.
Thank you.
A grave for them.
Yeah, it was a powerful story, and it's... when we're done going through all the stories, I would like to ask you which one was your favorite. But this has to be one of the strongest stories. And one of the most meaningful, not just to me and you, but to also the Finches.
Oh, yeah. And what's sad is it's the most forgotten one, I think. To the Finches, Edith doesn't even know.
Oh, yeah, half of them don't even know who this person is.
Right?
But, so, from the railroad, which...
Oh, wait a second, I have a question.
Oh, please.
I'm trying to remember it, because I forgot it just now. But, so, you know how this story here, it pulls at your heartstrings and it makes you feel things?
Mm-hmm.
You want to feel even more things about this story?
Oh, please.
Oh, man. Because my boy, Joseph Anderson, he's laying it on thick today. He mentioned something that blew my mind. So you remember in Odin's room, the room that Edie and Sven lived in.
Yeah.
You see all the articles on the wall. Well, there is an article that is next to the TV, which is titled, Finch Tells All, Mole Man Below Finch Home. And it's told a year before he dies. And she's talking about a mole man that lives below the house.
Wow. So does this kind of thing, is this a pattern throughout?
Yes, it's a pattern that you see it more and more, that Edie is using her family for attention.
And can we jump to the end real quick?
Yes.
Just for a second. Is this why your mom wants to keep you away from her?
I think that it's a combination. Because I think that...
What happened to the mom?
I think she just dies of cancer.
She dies of cancer.
Yeah, I think it's just serendipitous. Sad serendipitous, whatever that word would be. Unfortunate, I suppose.
Yeah.
But, because Edie truly believes in this curse.
Mm-hmm.
In the way that... As a coping mechanism, I think.
A justification.
Exactly. Because we're going to look back at these at the end of this, and I want to go through each of these. And I would say at least half of them can be blamed, at least partially, on the parent of this person that is dying. And
that's fascinating.
It is. And I didn't realize that the first time I played it, or even the second time until I was looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Dawn realizes that this curse and this living in fear, because the curse is really just another word for fear.
Yeah.
This worshipping of fear is destroying the family.
Mm-hmm.
And Edie hides behind this fear. And that's why Dawn wants to get out.
Oh, okay.
And I think that she also has this weird thing where she's craving attention, and I think that's kind of another just issue she has.
It's another divide that she's putting for herself, basically.
Exactly. But anyway, we were talking about Edie then moving on to the cemetery and then to Sam.
Yeah. You go to the cemetery. You go on, you come out of the tunnel after the railroad, and you see that the rails are dislodged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, purposefully, they were gotten rid of, so this would never happen again.
Destroyed them or something.
Exactly.
Oh crap! Sorry, I have to say another thing.
What?
This is what I meant to say when I mentioned it. Oh,
okay.
So, sorry, everybody. This Walter. There's just so much to Walter. So, he's escaping, right?
Yes.
And he's ready finally to move on with his life, to feel the sun on his face, to get out of the monotony, to escape his prison, essentially. But all Walter needs to do is go upstairs.
Oh, you're right. He doesn't even go through the house. He wants to leave.
Exactly. That's how... And I think this is him really shirking off the curse and the fear that he's not going to rely on his family anymore, and that he's willing to avoid his family. He's so determined to avoid his family that I think he instinctually blames in part that he's willing to use a sledgehammer to break a wall to get out of his space.
So is it the house that's killing the family? Because Edith only dies when she comes back.
I think...
that's a spoiler. Should I even...
Edith dies.
Wait,
that's why it's called What Remains
out?
of Edith Finch. Ooh, I didn't even realize that till this moment. That's why it's called What Remains of Edith Finch, because Edith Finch is dead.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you know. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
You guys are an hour into this of us spoiling it. It's fine at this point. But I don't think there's a curse.
Yeah,
and I don't think the house is killing anyone. I think that the deaths are...
I guess the mom doesn't die at the house, so...
No, and I think it's people's faults sometimes, and also just death happens.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's fear more than anything that's killing them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the real death that happens to Walter is the spiritual death. Now, obviously, he physically dies.
Yeah.
But I think that the death that rings true with you and I, that affects us so emotionally, is that this man is a husk. And the fear killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it makes me think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So yeah, you from the railroad. This is when you go onto the beach, right? And then you go.
Wait. I'm just kidding. That's fine.
Oh.
No more Walter. He's dead. We're moving on.
You go on the beach, right? And you see the what is it called?
Like a totem.
Yeah, a totem pole. A humongous totem pole. Never
Where
seen one so big.
Yes, gigantic.
And it's fallen down. It's broken up into pieces, and this is where you go through into the gardens, into where the cemetery is. And Edie's the one who made the cemetery, right? Or was it her mother?
It was Edie.
Yeah. It was Edie, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before the house.
Yeah. And looking at I spent quite a bit of time in the cemetery, actually, looking at all the tombstones and looking at all the dates.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Finches died on or around their birthday.
Ooh, I didn't realize that.
Which was really weird. So I don't know if that means anything, but they were all pretty close to their birthdays.
I feel like everything in this game means something. I don't know 90%.
Our dumb gamer brains can't get it.
My dumb gamer brain can't understand. All I know is shoot and eat hot chip and lie.
Is it Sam?
It's Sam. Because you go... So...
explain this to me.
So Edith admits that she's pregnant. Not that she was hiding it. We were just too stupid.
Yeah.
But Edith says, I probably shouldn't be walking on this branch because I'm 22 weeks pregnant. I'm like, yeah, girl, you shouldn't be. You're very irresponsible. But she gets up on the branch and she goes into the room that she can access from the roof, and it's Sam's room.
Mm-hmm.
He goes through the sliding glass door.
You're right.
I'm always right.
You're always
Never forget.
Right.
But Sam's story, oh my gosh. I'm a little crybaby. I just can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam is your grandfather. It's Don's father. And you go through the story of his death, which directly involves your mother. And it's just the saddest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad. And this might have hit home more for me because, well, I recently got married. And my wife is from Idaho. I am from... not Idaho. I'm from a lot of places, but pretty much not country. Never rural. Always lived in a city of some sort.
Yeah.
And
you're always on the move.
Yeah, I was on the move. You know, my father was in the military, so I lived on bases a lot. And then I lived here in Chico, California, where Chris and I are recording and where we call home.
Mm-hmm. Where we met.
Yeah, where we met. Where Futon Talks began.
Yes.
But anyway, all this just to try to say that my wife comes from a much more rural country background, and her father, or her stepfather, who I became quite close with, I worked with him in construction for the last 6 months. He's a very rugged and a very country man. He hunts and he likes to fish, and he's been a construction worker his whole life, and he was in rodeos for like 20 years. He's just your quintessential countryman. And I've gained a great respect for the culture. And when I hear Sam talk, I hear Brett, my stepfather, talk. And I hear the love in his voice. And his attempts to be a good father when he doesn't have anything left.
Yeah.
You know, he's already lost his 2 other boys.
Mm-hmm.
He feels great guilt for that, I'm sure. And
he lost his little brother.
And he lost his little brother. I think at this point he's lost his wife.
Yeah.
2 of them.
And he was in the military too, right?
Yeah, and he's been in the military. So this man's lived a hard life. And I think that it just speaks to me personally because I felt that way when watching it. But what's going on is that you're on this really beautiful camping trip with your daughter, Dawn, and you transition between the 2 characters taking pictures, which is super clever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move on until you've taken a picture of the correct thing. So, but you can finish talking about it.
I wanted you to finish it. I liked what you were saying.
I will.
I talked a lot about Walter. You can talk about it.
Okay, I'm glad to do it. And avoid the tears if possible. But you take pictures of Dawn, then she takes pictures of you peeing, but you can't see you peeing, don't worry. She's just joking around. And anyways, you take pictures of different things. Eventually you take a picture of a buck.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this whole sequence where you're taking pictures, you have to zoom in so that the focal length is correct to focus on the subject of the picture.
Yeah.
And it is just really creative. Again, like, these developers from Giant Sparrow are just so creative in keeping you connected with the game. I mean, if the minigames or the vignettes were played the same way, every single one of them, I don't think they would have been as effective. But as showcases for how a game can connect you emotionally to a story, I think they are impeccable. But anyways, so this one, you're taking the pictures, blah, 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 and you eventually take a picture of a buck. And you're there to hunt. And Dawn is very reluctant. She doesn't want to kill anything. And Sam's whole message is that, I think I have it written down here, his words specifically, but they really speak to me. I think because my father was this way, and because, again, I can hear Brett saying these words. And they really may not speak to anyone but me. But he says, because Dawn is protesting, she doesn't want to shoot the buck. And he says, Dawn, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong. And it really speaks to me and to my relationship with my father that he was the person, and Brett were the people to teach me that sometimes things are painful and they're not comfortable, but you need to do them to grow and to be strong and to survive.
Yeah.
And it's just very fatherly. Anyways, so you shoot the buck and you take a picture of it. And then Sam is setting up the picture so that he can kind of have a timed selfie with, I hate that word, a self-photograph with his daughter and him with the buck. And Dawn is just sobbing over the buck in the background. And he's trying to comfort her and tell her, hey, it's okay, you know, we're going to get this picture, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you did a hard thing. And he runs up, and because you set a timer, and then you have to control him, kind of like a isometric, isometric view, where you're controlling where he goes with the left stick. And anyways, you run up to the buck, and you step over it, and she says, it's still moving, Dad. I'm worried about it. Like, are you sure we're safe? And he says, no, we're fine. That's normal. And as he picks up the deer's head, you know, kind of to show off the rack on the buck bucks, and it throws Sam off the cliff. Ironically, just like Calvin, he flies to his death. And the picture is captured of Dawn reaching out to try to save her father and him falling to his death off a cliff.
Yeah.
Anyways, it just made me so sad. I'm so sad.
Yeah.
But what do you have to say about it?
I don't have a whole lot to say about Sam's. It goes to show how this game affects people differently.
Mm-hmm.
And how certain stories will connect with you and not with me. This one didn't really connect with me, and it was overshadowed by the two surrounding it.
Oh, the next one is it's a heartthrob.
Yeah.
Not a heartthrob, a heart destroyer with a sledgehammer. That's what the next one is. And I understand that.
I totally understand how you feel with your dad and Brett being these strong father figures. Ironically, my stepfather name is Brett as well.
What?
And he is... You know that?
No. I didn't know that.
He is also a very stern, no BSing military guy. You know? Mm-hmm. So I could kind of get that from Sam as well. Mm-hmm. I loved going through Sam's room and seeing all the memorabilia, all these pictures of him in what I think was Vietnam.
That's what it looked like, and I think it should have been the 70s, 60s.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So I did like that a lot, but it didn't hit me as hard as Gregory. Yeah,
and I think Gregory, and there's some really interesting details that I've learned from the dev diary that I watched and listened to about Gregory's, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think Gregory's is the most impactful. And I don't know if that's because we're newly married young men, or if we're just, not dead inside.
Yeah.
But we can move on to that one. Because after you finish Sam's story, you move on to his children's rooms, or I guess what was his children's room, because Dawn did sleep in there. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where does Gus fall in?
Gus is Gregory's younger brother. But he lives.
That's right.
For like 9 years. You're right. And then he dies.
Okay, so we're on Gregory.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like Gus's should be earlier because it's not as impactful.
Yeah, Gus's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, I think Gus's is the least impactful to me of all the stories.
I agree. Yeah, I'm the same.
Like, sorry, Gus. I think it might just be because I don't like Gus.
Yeah, Gus.
Which sounds bad.
Gus sucks. He's a stupid kid.
I just don't like him at all.
He's a jerk.
Gus, you suck and you deserve to drown in the ocean.
So with Gregory's, you come into this room and Gregory never got to grow up. So his bed is still the cradle or the crib. Yeah. Cradle. It was the crib. And so Sam wrote this one, correct?
Yes, and it is touching.
It is very touching.
That man knew how to write.
Yes, he did. Should have been a writer, not a hunter.
What were you thinking, Sam?
So you're in the perspective of a baby given a bath by his mother. She is being distracted by the phone because your dad and your mom and your dad are getting a divorce pretty much. So they're constantly arguing on the phone. And so you're just this baby, and when your mom leaves, you start seeing things a baby would see. Your imagination goes wild, and the simplest things become the most fascinating things, like rubber duckies, rubber frog, which you begin to control with your mind, pretty much.
Telekinetic baby.
Yes. And your mom comes back and she drains the bath, right? Or she just turns it off.
Yeah, she drains the bath completely.
Yeah, she drains it completely. No, I can't be right.
She does. She tries to be responsible by draining.
Oh, you're right.
And because she's really not walking away very far.
Uh-huh.
She walks. All she does is like
she closes
just walk to the other side of the bathroom.
Pretty much. But with your telekinetic powers now, so your imagination, it begins with you just moving a frog, and like you have your name written with magnets on the bathtub, and you can interact with these by jumping with the frog and knocking them over. And sooner or later you start hearing this music playing, and these rubber duckies start following you. And then
it sounds like a horror.
Yeah, you jump and you knock over like this whale toy for the bath, and it acts as like a trampoline. And with the frog, you jump with the trampoline, and you are forced to turn the faucet back on.
Yeah, you have to.
Which is another one of those things where it's like, I knew exactly where this was going, but you are forced to kill a baby.
Which is
in a
so
sense.
Sad. Yeah.
And it's very melancholy, because as soon as the water raises above your head, the baby is the frog and is swimming in this ocean.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful and so sad at the same time. And all the while after this happens, while this happens, your dad is describing how he wished he could see what you're seeing, or he wished he could see what his son saw. And it ends with, you go down the drain.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Yeah, your life goes down the drain, and you see the divorce papers being the final words that Sam is speaking. Do you have those written down? What was your
yeah, I do.
what was your quote that you took for this vignette?
Oh man. The quote that I have, and it's a lot. It's pretty much the last paragraph, because you don't want to miss any of it.
No, it's all very important.
And it's really beautiful. And while all this is going on, you hear the waltz of the flowers, which I think, if it weren't for that music, I don't know what it would be like. It's
probably
beautiful.
Be more, the melancholy wouldn't be there, it would just be morbid.
Yeah.
It would be morbid.
It would just be disturbing. But it becomes this almost beautiful.
Yeah, because Gregory is laughing.
He's enjoying.
Enjoying.
Enjoying. It almost sounds wrong, but he's joyful.
Yeah.
He's full of joy, and that's what Sam is pretty much saying about his son. And I'll go ahead and read the quote. And I think he says it better than I could. Kay is Sam's wife's name, the mother of Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
Kay, there's so much I don't understand about Gregory, about everything, but I know what happened was not your fault. And wherever Gregory is now, I'm sure he's happy, and he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam. And it is just, I mean, I was just in tears.
Yeah.
It just is so powerful, because it's almost impossible to put into words. And maybe it's just affecting us in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful way to look at death, and such a beautiful way to find peace in the joy of life, as opposed to the emptiness of losing one you love. So, anyways, we don't obviously want this to be just super depressing.
Yeah.
But man, it was just very powerful. Incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm. And
what I wanted to... I asked you about the Waltz of the Flowers because originally, when they were playtesting this game, this part specifically, everyone hated it because they didn't have that song.
Really?
I think they didn't have music at all. Which is an awful decision.
Yeah.
But it was very morbid, and people hated it. and they felt scarred by it, essentially. And this comes from the GDC talk they give on prototyping the different vignettes. And he said that somebody just added it on a whim, and it totally changed the game. Not just the vignette, but it changed the game. And from then on, it really brought it all together. And he was talking about how music can change everything, because they didn't change the gameplay at all. It was simply the music. And so again, I think that this game is more than a game, and it truly is the perfect emblem of how, or maybe example of how a game can be art, as it combines these other mediums, which are art, with the beautiful illustrated drawings, and as well as with the music, as well as with the spoken word. It just is awesome. Anyways, but we'll get off of Gregory.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like we're just, not frolicking, but just, and not languishing either, but we're just, really experiencing it. But after Gregory comes the worst one, Gus, who's a freaking loser.
Yeah, Gus sucks.
And we hardly need to talk about Gus.
No, he is a little jerk.
He's got a mohawk. That's enough said.
Yeah, enough said. Yeah, with Gus, did he kill everyone?
so he has this.
It's a cool vignette.
Yeah,
like what's going on.
It's the only vignette I got stuck on though, for a moment.
Yeah, because I couldn't find the letters.
Stupid totem.
Yeah.
Why'd they hide the letters behind the totem?
I don't know. But explain Gus for us.
All right, so Gus is a little punk. He's really not that bad, but he is one of the sons of Sam, obviously, and he's like 9 or 10, and he does not want to watch his father get remarried to a new woman.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at his father's wedding, and the narration is done by Dawn, and it's a poem she wrote to memorialize him, I suppose. And you play as Gus at the wedding, and he is flying a kite all around, and you're kind of like flying through letters in the sky to flip them over so you can read them and continue the narration.
Which is brilliant.
Again, it's just another example of like, wow, they did it again,
Yeah.
And eventually a storm starts to come and really be violent. A violent storm that's picking up furniture and stuff. But the wind follows your kite. And so you pick up all the chairs as you run your kite along them. And you pick up where, like, the tarp that was covering where the wedding was. And eventually you even pick up the tent where everyone is eating and partying for the wedding. But the whole thing that it's really trying to say is just that Sam kind of leaves Gus out in the storm, and he doesn't care for him like he probably should. You know, he's angry at Gus, so I think he doesn't force him to come into the tent.
And Gus is also angry at his dad, so he doesn't even want to be around him.
Exactly. And so then what happens to Gus? It's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, it almost seems like not only is Gus left out there, but with the kite, Gus is trying to take the importance out of Sam's new journey.
Mm-hmm.
He's flying it and picking up all the pieces and ruining everything for Sam almost. I almost feel like he's trying to just spite his father.
He's trying to destroy it.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help Gus because we like Sam.
Yeah, no. But it almost, you can also sympathize with Gus because, I think at one point or another, we've all been there where someone that we really care about finds someone who's more important to them.
And he's the forgotten child.
Yeah, he's...
In my mind.
Absolutely, he is.
Especially from what Dawn says at the end of her poem, which I'll quote in a bit.
Uh-huh.
But he's the forgotten child. And so I do sympathize with Gus a lot more than I let on, I think.
Yeah.
He's just so lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's implied that he drowns like his brother.
It does. He's swept up. So yeah, I guess talking about him, there's a lot more to it than him being a punk kid who...
We're wrong.
We are wrong.
We're sorry.
We were too quick to judge. But yeah, I think we've all been there. And you can look at it from both perspectives of the dad trying to move on with his life and the forgotten child. You just don't feel very important to your own dad.
Crying for attention.
We've all been there, I think, at one point or another.
Except for Lucas Kellen. Because Lucas Kellen doesn't have a dad. But the quote that I have for it is the last few lines of Dawn's poem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she kind of, what she says encapsulates exactly what you were saying. So it will accompany it very well. She says, I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea and foam. But I didn't until we found you. And like, wow. You know, it's just everyone forgot him.
Mm-hmm.
And they forgot him till he was dead.
Just like his brother.
Right? Just like his brother.
The mom was
Literally
distracted and forgot about the baby.
And you can say that about Walter too.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't matter till he was dead. And he didn't matter till he could service the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Till he could service the fear.
Service Edie.
Exactly. Much. Oh man, it's just... What a downer you are, Gus.
This whole game's a downer, man.
This game is a downer. We'll find a light at the end of the tunnel, we swear. But then the light will just be a train.
So from Gus, we go, and throughout the story, we kind of forgot to mention him, but your little brother Milton has been missing. He's never died. You've never found the body.
And this is Edith's little brother.
Yeah, Edith's little brother.
Specifically. So he's very young.
Yeah.
He's got to be like 12.
Exactly.
Like only 13 at this point, if he was still alive.
And you go up the house after Gregory's room. And by the way, in the house, you are going up and up and up the spire, pretty much.
Closer to heaven.
Yeah. So you find Milton's room in a lighthouse, right?
It's pretty cool.
It's kind of like a lighthouse. And what is it? What's the developer again?
Annapurna's the producer. Giant Sparrow.
Giant Sparrow, thank you. The creators of Unfinished Swan.
And this is definitely...
This has to be
It's got to be a connection between them.
Absolutely.
I hope it's not overt. Just because that takes away from it, I think.
It would take away from it, but I think it's subtle enough. Because if someone never played Unfinished Swan...
Which I hadn't the first time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, neither of us have
I
played
still
it.
haven't played the game.
We've just seen the cover art.
Yeah, the cover.
Essentially.
But immediately you get into his room through the window, and it's a white canvas room, basically, with yellow and black paint splatters everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very cool how you go through Milton's story. You find a little notepad, and we've all done this as a kid, where you draw the pictures to make a movie, basically, on each page. And for Milton, he has it's called the magic paintbrush, thank you. And you find out that he paints his way into another world.
Mm-hmm.
He paints a door, and he goes through that door, which you could look at as him going to the Unfinished Swan.
Well, I think that the Unfinished Swan
is that
literally
the room?
About a boy who gets lost in a painting.
Is it really? Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Granted, again,
we haven't
played this game, but that's what I believe is the point of the game.
But you've definitely studied this game more than I have, or read or watched more about it. The only thing I've done is played this game once.
Yeah. Boots on the ground, baby.
This game to me is very much like Journey, where I only want to play it once. I don't want to go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell us what you think or what other people think about Milton? Because he's very mysterious.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to think of him.
I think he's the most ambiguous and mysterious because every other person you can figure out more or less what happened to them. But Milton is missing. He was never found. You know, I opt not to think that he actually found a way to escape into this magical world.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I don't think that's cool, but simply because
that wouldn't fit this narrative.
It wouldn't fit the realism of the narrative, you know? But I think that I think it is that same theme, though, just in a more symbolic sense, that this magic paintbrush, or just painting in general, is this magical form of escapism for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that he did lose himself in his art. And I think that the reason he's lost is because he's losing himself, right?
Sure.
And so I think he's a symbol of that. I think he really probably did just get lost in the woods one day and just died out there, which sounds horrible.
So, looking at the art in the room and looking at the sketch pad, it's odd that the sketch pad is so amateurish.
Yeah, and like cartoony almost.
I wonder.
The rest isn't cartoony, but I know what you mean.
Could Edie have made that?
Oh, I could see that.
Because it's
more in Edie's style.
Yeah, it's not as abstract as Milton's paintings.
Milton's paintings are much more... Yes.
Abstract
and even advanced.
Yeah.
Whereas, and not that Edith isn't a good artist, but she seems more... Well, they're all good artists.
It looks just like a, Saturday morning cartoon newspaper.
Like something we did when we were kids.
Exactly.
So yeah, that could be interesting. I don't know. Maybe it was something Edith did.
Or Edie.
Excuse me.
I'm not saying that she killed Milton or did anything with Milton, but she made the memorial.
She makes all the memorials. She paints all the people on the trunks or whatever too. So
I also it's weird. In Edith's book that you're filling out, the picture of Milton is the cartoon, and it's not Milton.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
Do you ever see what Milton really looks like? Besides the missing pages? Like the missing papers, the ads or whatever?
I think that... Here's an ad for a kid. I think that you see...
Do you see a portrait?
The painting. You see the painting that Edie made of him.
Oh, so Edie is a painter.
Edie, yeah, she's the one who paints all the stuff. Because you know how there's usually like a slice of log?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so I think she paints Milton. But I mean, he looks like a little brown-haired kid.
Yeah.
He's nothing. That's what I'm trying to say.
But,
I found Milton to be a little underwhelming, if I'm being honest.
And I felt like he was the center of the story for a long time.
I think he's important to it, but definitely I wouldn't say it's a letdown, because that's not the point, but compared to the stories that surround it, and especially the story that's to come, I think Lewis's is one of the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Milton is like a speed bump on the way to Lewis. You know what I mean?
Kind of is too, physically. Going up the house.
True.
It's kind of a pain because you have to go around the lighthouse through the window, and then you can go up, which you somehow pull yourself up the rope as a pregnant woman, which is impressive.
It's like a pulley in the
platform below. Oh, was it? Okay.
I didn't realize that till my second playthrough, though.
Okay.
I was like, the frick I should do this.
But yeah, you get to Lewis's room. I don't know, is there any more to say about Milton?
No. Milton, there's nothing more to say about you.
He's just mysterious.
You're Mr. Mysterious, and no one cares about you.
But you get to Lewis's room, and his is really cool, and it's the college student room.
Yeah.
It has San Juan Brew.
Yeah, San Juan Brew on the wall.
Yeah, it has
it's got a game
legalized
system.
marijuana posters. And what was his memento? What's the thing that you read or... Oh, it was his psychiatrist.
The letter that his psychiatrist sends to your mother.
Yeah.
Because I think your mother asks for insight into his suicide.
What happened, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot to say about this, but would you like to start it?
Sure, I'll start it. I'll do the quick rundown.
Okay.
So you can give your feelings on it. So, again, I think this is just an incredible example of Giant Sparrow understanding how to connect a player to a game and how to connect you to a narrative. So the overarching idea that goes into this vignette is that you're a man who is caught up in the monotony of everyday life, but in his head, he has this imagination and this power within him that is so much greater than what he's doing with his life, essentially.
Yeah.
And he starts to live this double life where he just daydreams about the things he wishes he could do and the life he wishes he could live. And the daydream eventually overtakes his real life. And there's some really great quotes about that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But this idea, which is really relatable and really really impactful, it's told not just through the words, but through the gameplay. With the left stick, you are controlling his daydream, which involves kind of like a top-down dungeon crawling perspective, and then it's isometric, and then it's third person, and it kind of grows in complexity.
Yeah.
And on your right stick, you are doing your monotonous job of grabbing a fish, bringing it to a little guillotine, chopping its head off, and then putting it onto a conveyor belt. So the thing is that neither of these stop, and you have to do both of them simultaneously. So you're trying to concentrate on the two things at once, just like Lewis is.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really fascinating is that the game, or the imagination per se, that he's having is growing in complexity and growing in size as it overtakes the monotony of his daily life. So it goes from being a little thing that takes up a quarter of the screen to taking up the entire screen, and all you can see is the fish. You can't see the guillotine, you can't see anything else. To the point where at the end of the story, this imagination becomes so much more attractive than his real life that he says his imagination is more real than his own body. And he takes his own life to, I guess, in order to abandon his real life for what he thinks is his real life ultimately. Is that a good synopsis? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought that was perfect. And the way he kills himself is he bends over with the guillotine, correct?
I don't know. Oh, excuse me. I don't know. I think it'd be hard to fit his head in there, which sounds so bad. It's so morbid.
Well, because in the imagination, he is beheaded by a guillotine.
Yes.
When he
I don't know what he does, though.
When he bows down for the crown.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's symbolic. We don't know how he dies. I know he commits suicide, though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accident.
How many
I think
times
he does it on purpose.
were you afraid that he was going to chop his hand off?
Oh, the entire time.
Me too.
I was so sure. I was like, this dude's hand is gone. So it was kind of actually nice that it subverted my expectation there.
Yeah, I
it's not
think
an
so
accident,
too.
It's something deliberate, which is very different.
Lewis's story is very similar to Walter's, but from a different perspective. Walter's story symbolized loneliness for me, and Lewis symbolizes longing. We've all been there with our day-to-day jobs, this grind that we get into.
Can you speak to how this specific idea connects to us starting this podcast? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
Absolutely.
That's what I thought of when you started saying that.
Absolutely. I mean, when I'm at work and, I'm at a grocery store, there's a bunch of cases on the aisle. All I do is I cut the case open, put the stuff on the shelf, and move on. And usually I am dead silent, listening to music. So my mind will go to thinking about this podcast. Like, I've always thought about doing a podcast with you. I've always thought about doing something creative as a passion project, because it's so hard to do it when you're in a rut like this, like work. It's so hard to break free from it and do something that you want to do. We almost box ourselves in and close ourselves off when we're at work, or when we're in a working life.
I don't think that our own situation is any different. Now, I think that we could have a whole podcast just of Chris talking about his job, because he makes it sound so monotonous, and it is, and it's painfully monotonous. But I've also heard some of the wildest stories come out of his night crew job. But I'll explain my job a teeny bit and what I was doing before this. Now, Chris he's been doing that for years now. So that's one of the other reasons it's gotten to be, I think, so almost like
second nature.
Second nature, right?
I catch myself all the time calling work home.
Oh, that's painful.
I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I left my charger at home when I'm already at my house. But I'm thinking about Rayleigh's.
Mm-hmm. Darn it, Rayleigh's.
I
hope
know.
the Rayleigh's executives aren't listening to our podcast.
Yeah, I hope they are.
They always are trying to. But I think that my job, although different, was rather similar in that I was a finish carpenter. And what that means is we'd put the base into a house as well as the trim around windows and doors. We'd install doors. And we'd make closets, like custom closets. And so that includes tons of cutting. So for the first 3 to 4 hours of every day, I would go through, measure closets, measure shelves, and then I would just cut. Cut. Every 30 seconds, bring the saw down on a new cut, measure, cut. And it's just one of those extremely rhythmic, monotonous jobs. And I think that you're right, that sometimes it feels, and we don't mean to wax poetic again, but just sometimes it seems like your creativity's dead, and you just wish you could express yourself, and you wish you could break out like Walter does. And I think that for me, this game really did speak to me, in that it was inspiring, that I don't want to end up like Lewis or Walter, and I want to make sure that I follow my passions, and I follow the sun, and I follow where my heart leads me. And that doesn't mean quitting your job,
Sure.
but it does mean following your heart, which sounds like a Hallmark card. But I also think that it rings true. So yeah. I don't know. That was just what I thought about when you were talking. So okay. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But we very much relate to the story, and I guess that's really what we're getting at.
Speaking about all these stories, I felt I want to back up a bit.
Backing it up.
Because there's some story plot that we're about to touch on, but we haven't touched on yet. That's really important, and it's the Finch's old house.
Yeah.
Which is in between. I mean, we're right there. It's in between Milton and Lewis and Gus and Gregory, pretty much. Mm-hmm. As Edith, when you're on the cliffside, you look out through a telescope and see the old Finch house, which got washed away when Odin came. Pretty much, right? Because they left Norway on the house. Which
was ridiculous.
Which is crazy. Like in the 1800s.
They straight up put the house on a boat. And they were like, all right, we're going. We're taking the entire kit and caboodle, baby.
Yeah. And so when they crashed ashore, Odin made this new house. And
I think he died out there on the house.
I think so too. Yeah, you're right. So was it Sven who
makes the house?
Sven, his son, makes the house. Yeah. So we'll touch on the old house later. I just didn't want us to just randomly get to the old house.
No, yeah, but it's good that you did that because it's a thing.
I will say, because you've been talking about the music meshing with the gameplay. I didn't cry barely through this game. I cried through Walter. But I cry at the end. But I cried looking at the old house. And I don't know what it was. And the best way I can describe it is that longing for something that I never had. And that it's that secondhand nostalgia.
Yeah.
which has been this whole game. I never experienced any of these things. And I've never been to any of these places, but I feel like I lost the opportunity, maybe, or
like they're lost. Like you lost.
Yeah, they're lost.
Yeah.
You'll never get those feelings or that time, the smells, the sounds ever again. Mm-hmm. And looking at the old house, dead and washed away, is kind of how I feel about my my childhood. Mm-hmm. It's out of reach.
Yeah, it's too far.
And it doesn't look like it once was. Ooh. You know?
Yeah.
It's been altered and disfigured and disformed by time. And that, for some reason, it's kind of a throwaway moment. You just look at it through the telescope. But it was really impactful to me for some reason.
I felt emotional when I looked at it too. I don't know
really?
if it's just the art or the way
it's something about it. The music in the background also kicks it in where it just feels like a part of me is lost. It's something that there's a hole and I can't refill it, right? You know?
Yeah.
It's just gone. A part of me's gone. I'm happy that you felt the same way about that scene. Because it's not a vignette or anything. It's just something you get to interact with.
And you don't even have to interact.
You don't have to do it. You could miss it completely. Mm-hmm. So I thought
that's what you missed. Or it's not what you missed. What you did before. You almost missed it.
I almost missed it.
That was a close one. You almost didn't get a second impression. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
So, and we're about to come back on it because after Lewis, you go up to your mom's room, right? Is it your mom's or Edie's?
It's both you and...
it's Edith's room.
It's Edith and Dawn. I think
That's
they
right.
live in the same space.
Yeah. And this is where you find... Was it a locked book? Is that what Dawn's memento is, or...?
So Dawn, I don't think she even has a memento. But you do read a book. Oh, it's when you go up to your room, you open up your diary and you remember the last night.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. The last night with Edie. It's just the last night at the house with Edie and Dawn.
Yeah, Edie, Dawn, and Edith.
Having dinner. And that's why... Yeah, do you want to...
Yeah, I can talk about it.
You want to talk about it? Yeah, thanks.
So, you guys are all at dinner together, and you're eating Chinese food. Lewis obviously isn't there because he's committed suicide at this point. And you are kind of trying to get Edie to let go, right? Because your mother says that you're leaving that night. And Edie gets rather angry, and she says that the grown-ups are going to argue, so you need to go check out your gift that I left you in the hallway. So you go, and you actually go into the library, where I assume you knew she would leave you your gift. And the gift that you find is a book. And
yeah.
The book has the story that I think you were going to talk about. It all involves the house you were talking about earlier, so you want to explain that vignette, the last one?
Yeah. This one was really cool. I like this. This was, it's all in the perspective of Edie. And the tide had receded further than it has in years.
Yeah.
Was there like a specific amount of time? Was it like 100 or 300 years or something like that?
I think she just says ever.
Ever.
So most it's ever gone out.
Okay.
Because of some earthquake, correct?
Yeah, something like that. So she was able to walk all the way to the old house. And as she's walking through this almost graveyard of dead fish and just horrible smells, and this fog rolls in, and she's just trying to make her way back to her old house.
Yeah.
And this is also where you see like a deer, which, maybe symbolizes Sam
Ooh, yeah, I didn't even think about
You know? And you just get to the old house and she lives there, right? Was that what that is?
So I think that's really, really interesting, and we have a lot to talk about with that.
Because was this vignette post-mortem, or was this the telling of her death, or was this a dream that she had?
I think it was a dream she had, because I think it's actually occurring on the day of Edith's birth.
That's right, you're right. It is the day that she was born.
But how much of it do you think is true?
Again, I don't know, really.
How much can what we would call Edie, I keep wanting to call her Edith, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
We would call Edie an unreliable narrator, correct?
Yeah.
Because we just don't know if we can trust anything she says. But I think that despite the actual events, right, whether there was a fog, whether there was an earthquake, I think we can trust that for Edie, I think that house represents the past. And what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And how she's trying to get to it. Because where does Edie live? In the past.
Mm-hmm.
She can't move on.
And it's foggy and it's blurred and it's unclear.
And it's broken.
Especially in her perspective, pretty much.
Yeah.
From her point of view.
And it's interesting that I think houses in general in this story represent the past.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, oh man, I didn't even think about this. Joseph Anderson, this is my idea. So, you know how there's the house, like
yes.
the base house that Sven built.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. And then after the death of, which child was it? It wasn't Lewis. Oh, after Sanjay. After Dawn.
Oh, we didn't
Edie's
even
mother.
talk about Sanjay.
It's hardly, it's just some.
I mean, it's just your
Your dad.
mom's new husband, right?
Well, I think it's your dad.
Oh, yeah, it's your dad.
You don't talk a whole lot about him because he's not a Finch.
Mm-hmm.
But he dies. And because Sanjay dies, you end up moving back in with Edie.
Yeah.
That's why you come back to the house. Now, everything in Edie's life is built on the past. But it's interesting that when Dawn comes back to live with Edie, their lives are literally built on the past. Because they just build onto the house.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Which is also... Nah, I won't get into that.
Yeah,
forget that.
We could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
So we won't bother. But it's just this idea that she can't let go of the past. And I think that I'll read my little quote for this section, and it's the argument that you can overhear them having as you go to the book, as you approach it. Because I think that at the very center of this story, this is the discussion that the story raises, that the game kind of presents. Edie says, "The thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories." And then Dawn says, "My children are dead because of your stories."
Mm.
And it's this idea of whether we should dwell in the past or forget the past. Right?
Yeah.
And especially for these people, I think it has to do with whether we should live in fear of the past and let the past control us, or whether we should confront the fear, see the sun, live a new day, and all that stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
And for me, those are the core themes of this story, and they come to a really perfect head in this, that who pulls you out of the story, of Edie's story? It's your mom.
Yeah.
It's symbolic that she's trying to pull you away from this past, from this fear.
Mm-hmm.
She wants you just to move on, to live a new life, to not be shackled by the fear and the past in this house.
You're right, but there's also a thing where you're always brought back to the house.
Ooh.
Sanjay died and forced Dawn to come back. Dawn died and forced Edith.
to come back. Yeah.
Edith dies, forces your son to come back to the house, right? Because the final scene is him at the house.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, yeah.
So it's almost just a self-proclaimed curse that maybe they want to believe in it also because it's their great-grandmother's story. Mm-hmm. And they want to see if it's true, and in doing so, they make it so. Mm. It's almost just manifest destiny almost.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's fascinating. You could
You can look at it in so many different ways. But then again, I also don't want it to be a curse.
And I don't think it is.
I don't think it is, but...
What do you think, though, of the ending, then, of her son coming back? Do you think it's a reconciliation of both views? Perhaps Dawn isn't right and perhaps Edie isn't right, that there needs to be a balance where you can acknowledge the fear and not just run away from it, but also learn from it and not be afraid of it, right? You can acknowledge the past without being a slave to it.
Yeah. Because your son he's just looking at the house, right? From like the road.
Oh, I think he's at your gravestone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who made the gravestone?
I don't know. I guess your son. I suppose.
I guess so. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can...
I don't know. And I think everyone can draw a different
conclusion
I suppose. But I would say that would be mine. Is that you can learn from the past without being a slave to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this curse isn't real.
Yeah.
Fear is the curse, and you don't have to be afraid.
I like how Edith is almost the antithesis of Edie.
Yeah.
Because Edie is making up these stories almost in a way, but Edith is trying to make a family tree of facts.
Yeah.
You know, she wants to know how they died. She wants their memories almost.
Yeah.
She's going through Sam's writings, almost like a scripture of her family.
Ooh, I like that.
While Edie was, like you're saying, embellishing on things, using it for her own gain.
Glorifying
it, exactly.
She glorifies their deaths instead of... Yeah, it's very interesting.
Instead of just, taking facts for facts and just accepting it almost. But yeah, the game ends with... Does Edith have a final quote?
Oh, she does. Yes. Great quotes. As you're coming forth from her womb.
Yeah, that was confusing. I thought I was a blood cell. And I thought I was cancer or something.
I thought I was cancer. We're not cancer, though. We're a baby.
You're a baby.
And I really like it. I think it's kind of a beautiful little ending piece.
Please.
And this is what she says. She says, perhaps the best we can do is open our eyes and appreciate how strange and beautiful this all is. And I guess what she's saying is just that perhaps all we can do is appreciate the beauty and how strange things are. And I guess that kind of feeds into my conclusion that you have to open your eyes. You can't cower with your head in the sand. You can't just run away from the past.
Mm-hmm.
But you can acknowledge it, and you can embrace it in such a way that you aren't afraid of it, and you aren't a slave to it.
Yeah.
So
you're not forced into it, almost.
It doesn't control you.
Because you don't know who the father is of your son. You never know him.
Idea.
So when Edith passes away after childbirth, your son is not chained to any of it.
Oh, I like that.
He has no the only reason he has to come back is because his mom wrote these stories. It's
genealogy.
Yeah, the genealogy of where he came from, but it doesn't mean that he's chained to it.
And I think that that's what's beautiful, is that Edie and Dawn are the true foils of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Edie forces them to worship the past, and Dawn forces them to run away from the past.
Yeah.
But what Edith gives her son is the opportunity to choose for himself.
Yeah.
Because he has the stories, and he can draw what
he can go to the house, but yeah.
But it won't control him. Mm-hmm. It's really beautiful. And the thing is, I'm learning so much about it as I say it.
As we're talking about it.
So it's fascinating. And I'm really glad that we were able to talk about it. Is there anything else you'd like to mention from the game? Or did we want to say which was our favorite? Which
I have a couple other little nuggets.
Give me them nugs.
This is something I read, like a trivia thing, almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a room where you see 3 light switches. I don't know if you've read about this.
I have not, no.
So there's 3 light switches all with names above them. And you find this pretty early on in the game. And I'm pretty sure it's Gregory and Gus. I could be wrong. It's one of the two kids. Their light switches are down, or no, they're up. And Dawn's is down.
Oh, it's down.
I should look this up. I should have looked it up.
What does it mean?
At the end of the credits, when you look down, like as it's scrolling down, you see the light switch, and they're all pointing up, signifying that one of them died. And it could have been Edith, actually.
Oh, that would make sense.
It's the three kids.
Oh, like Milton, Lewis, and Edith?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I thought that was a cool thing, but
that's a cool little detail. There's so many details.
There's
in this game.
at the very end of the game, before the credits roll, the game is dedicated to someone's grandmother, it seems, and her name was Shirley.
Oh,
which is my grandma's name. And this is one of those things where it makes me nostalgic. It just certain stories and certain aspects of this game are pulling at me for little things. And the only reason I played this game was because of you. And this game has the San Juan Islands, which is my favorite place.
Yeah.
And like when I was first looking at Odin's vignette and it said Orcas Island, I was like, no way, Yeah. And then later on you see like, I was like, it's only Orcas Island if it's in Washington. And then like the next page is like in Washington.
Yeah.
And you see like the San Juan Island signs. And then having those little emotional episodes with Walter's story, Gregory's story, and Lewis's story. And having that connection with the old house. And with the game being dedicated to this woman named Shirley. I would never think that this game would have such an impact on me.
Yeah.
And I think you feel the same way.
Yeah.
It has no reason to be this good, but it is.
It defies
And it's such
everything.
A powerful game. For being so simple. For being only 2 hours long? 2.5 hours long?
Our
if
podcast
that
may end up being longer than the game.
I think it is already. But yeah. Do you have any remarks before we get into our closing?
Yeah. I mean, just again, I really don't intend to just be like on a soapbox, but it's just so inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fear the past. Don't live in fear. Don't allow yourself to be put into a box. Be good. It's just, of course, these are simple messages that we've heard 100 times, but they really struck me, and I really encourage everyone, if you haven't played this game, go play this game. It is that good. And, I think we've covered all the basics. Quickly, what was your favorite vignette?
After talking, I think Walter has to be my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
A really close second would probably be Gregory's. How about you?
I think that for me, Gregory's would probably be first, just because the letter that Sam wrote.
Yeah.
It just affected me so deeply. And then after that, it's so hard to say. It's so hard to choose. I almost feel bad for not choosing Lewis's, but I think his is for other people, not necessarily for me.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Gregory's. I really like Walter's, and I actually really like Molly's, just because of the memories that I associate with playing it with my wife and sister.
Yeah, that's neat.
But that'd be my answers.
Yeah.
But do you have any fast ones for me to
close
this out?
Before the fast ones, I actually have a little game of my own.
Oh baby,
I'm going to give you the names of the family members, and I want you to give me the first word or name that comes to your mind.
Yes, sir. Let's do this.
And I'm gonna go through them with you.
Okay, dope. Yeah.
Odin.
Boat.
Pilgrim.
Also, my words might be very lame. Boat.
Edie.
Evil.
Grandma.
I was like, the two words were evil and awful. She's not that bad, but those are the words that apparently subconsciously I feel towards Edie.
Yeah. Don.
Helicopter.
Why?
She's like a helicopter parent. But she's not bad. I don't know why that's the word.
I think of Sun. Molly.
Cat.
Dreamer.
Ooh, look at you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Barbara.
Eek.
I thought of Star.
Aw. You like celestial bodies.
Yeah.
3 of your answers have been like celestial bodies. That's
Calvin.
good. Ooh. I thought of a lot of words. First one was dead, if I'm being honest.
Astronaut.
Gosh darn it, look at you. Just going to space. I just thought of his crumpled body at the
Sam.
bottom of the cliff. Oh, Sam. Dad.
Hunter. Walter.
Peaches.
Hermit. Gregory.
My heart.
Baby. Gus.
Dog. Sorry, my wife's dog's name is Gus.
Punk. Milton.
Black and white.
Painter. Lewis.
Pot.
Depression. Edith.
Edith. Relatable.
Writer.
Nice. That was I liked that a lot.
Thank you.
We should do that segment. What would be our name for this segment?
We'll figure it out.
We'll talk about this later.
Okay, so now are you ready for some fast ones?
I'm going to catch him. Yeah, hit him out of the park.
Okay. Here's my papers. Getting it ready for you.
You can feel it in your ears.
New house or old house?
New house.
Magic paintbrush or imaginary world?
Ooh, imaginary world.
Have your life be narrated or have intense dreams of objects in your room?
Oh, life be narrated.
Travel from Norway to San Juan or live life in a bunker for 30 years?
Oh, travel from Norway to San Juan.
That's a long trip.
But I don't want to get out of
And you're on a
bunker
wooden
just to be
boat.
hit by a freaking train.
Do you want to be the writer of the story or the receiver?
I'd rather be the writer.
What would your gravestone be?
Ooh, like what would it have on it?
Yeah.
Like as a memento?
Yeah.
It would have a DualShock 5. That's not even a thing. I would want... This sounds odd, but I'd want it to be like my wedding ring. To symbolize,
I like that.
being a father and a husband.
Now, so is this your tombstone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The tombstone wouldn't be a ring, but it would
Yeah, I
have a
understand.
little ring on it. Maybe
What
my
would-
wife and I's rings on
Yeah.
top of each other.
What would be in your room?
Ooh. Like, what would the stuff in my room be?
Yeah. Or even what would Edie leave behind for you?
Oh. Like on her memorial thing for me.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I would really hope that there'd be a picture of me with my family.
Mm-hmm.
My family means a lot to me. I'd hope there'd be a picture of Christ. I'm a very religious person and very spiritual person. And a picture of probably me and you.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend, I'd want you to be on there. And then some of my passions, like something to do, this sounds so cheesy, but something to do with PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's become a huge part of me.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
yeah, I would say something like that, which may sound dumb, but
No.
those are the things that make me me, I think.
Yeah. And here's just a quick throwaway.
Ooh.
Would you rather be knocked off a cliff by a deer or swing off a cliff?
Oh, gosh. I'd be knocked off. I don't think I could make myself swing off the cliff.
Okay. And those are your fast ones.
Wow.
Now, give me 15-second pitch of Edith Finch.
All right, let me think for a couple seconds here.
You want,
Oh yeah, here you go. I'll set up a timer.
Thank
for
you.
Clock. I'm just using this time to think of my pitch. All right, there you go.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready. All right, you're a girl and you're pregnant, and so you don't know who you are. So you want to find out who you are. So you go to your house and there's a dragon slide, and you want to find out who you are by finding out your past. So you live through vignettes of your family.
That's good.
Was that 15 seconds?
That was like 11 and a half.
11 and a half? I could have gone so much further.
Yeah.
That was a bad pitch.
It's fine.
Annapurna would not have produced this game.
No, they would not have.
They would have been disappointed.
And that's it for what remains of Edith Finch.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We had a ton of fun and a ton of existential pain going through this game. But we're really grateful for the opportunity we had to play it. And again, we really, everyone should play this game if you get the chance. So we thank you. We love you guys. And we hope that you have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. The same old thing. Have you ever met a witch? I hear tell of a real bad mama. So bad. Pure evil. Walking around in the skin of a 90-year-old woman. Pure evil, purest of evil. She's a bad mama, and I'm feeling feeble. Just trying to think about this old lady. I don't know how to feel anything but my fear. Bad mama, bad mama, bad mama. Oh, she a bad mama. Bad mama, bad mama. Edith Finch is a bad mama. Bad mama. Bad mama. Bad mama. Bad mama. Bad mama. Evil lady. 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 Yeah. Bad mama. Evil lady. Evil lady. 90-year-old skin. Bad mama.
If you're a good mama, you would subscribe to this Patreon.
Oh yeah.
If you're a good mama,
All your good mamas out there.
you'd leave a comment,
Give us just a bit.
a thumbs up.
Press all the buttons. Subscribe.
But don't listen to our show if you're a bad mama.
Oh, you bad mamas, get out of here.
Bad
This show's for good mamas.
Bad. Why is it so
Bad
bad, mama?
Bad mama. Bad mama.
Bad mama.
Only
Bad
good mamas. Only good mamas. Bad mamas.
Mama out of you.
Mama.